All right, this morning I'm out here with LeeAnn Fairlie, and some of you guys may have seen the newsletter we just put out, and talking about LeeAnn and some of her accomplishments and what's coming up. But I wanted to come out this morning, and you know, we tend to have a few lessons every couple weeks, right? And so, and I wanted to bring LeeAnn out here, and I got Keenan here filming this for us this morning, and I wanted to talk a little bit to LeeAnn and kind of introduce you guys at home. And some of you have met her, some of you haven't. We'll explain that here in a second. But LeeAnn, I appreciate you coming out here today, and kind of tell the guys and gals at home what you got coming up. I mean, what's the big thing you got going up? I mean, it's been a pretty big deal. I mean, we put it in the newsletter, we talked about it, and we want to say congratulations again. But tell the people at home what's going on. What do you got in the next couple of weeks?
Well, I'll be going to the USGA Women's Senior Amateur, and it's for ladies who are 50 and over. And I haven't been able to do it until really last year, and I made it last year, but then I couldn't go, and so this is my first time to get to go to it. So I'm very, very excited.
And where's it going to be?
It's going to be at Cedar Rapids Country Club in Cedar Rapids, Iowa.
So, and it is a USGA event. So it's a major for amateurs. I mean, it's a major. Yep. In fact, you know, when Jack Nicklaus and Tiger Woods talk about their majors, they count their USGA events in. I mean, the amateurs in there.
Absolutely.
So yeah. So we do too. Absolutely. All right. So, well, let's talk a little bit about that. So you qualified for that. When did you qualify for that? How long ago was it?
About 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, and you qualified up in Iowa. You went up to Cedar Rapids and qualified.
I went to the site, yes.
So tell them the advantage of that, because we've been talking a lot about that. Actually, what you did, and this is kind of interesting what you did here. You went.
Well, I had 3 choices. Okay. I had Arkansas, Texas, or Cedar Rapids. And Texas, it was Houston, so it's the same distance as Cedar Rapids. Okay. And I know all those ladies. And then Arkansas, it wasn't really a good time, and I just didn't love where the golf course was going to be. So I decided, well, I might as well go to Iowa and play and see the golf course, even though I had no idea who would be there to compete.
Right.
So I wanted to see the golf course, so if I make it, then I have a chance to practice between that qualifying and the actual tournament.
So you actually qualified in the course you're going to be playing the tournament at.
Yes, I did.
That's a big advantage. We've talked about that a lot. Now, who else qualified? Was it your roommate? What else?
It was one of my college teammates. Susan Marchese lives in Omaha, Nebraska. We haven't seen each other in probably 10 years, and she qualified as well.
That is great. So now, how many people qualified for this event? How many?
Well, they have 130 players, and not all of them qualify because they have exemptions. So there'll be 130 start on Saturday, and then they cut on Sunday afternoon to 64 for match play.
So you go to match play, and then determine the USGA senior or amateur champion, which is a big deal. Now, the other, obviously, LeeAnn, reason we have her out here is that LeeAnn is a single playing golfer, obviously, and I've been working with LeeAnn for a few years now. I've been working with her husband for quite a few years now, her husband Greg.
Yes.
Some of you guys that come to our schools, we'll get in this in a minute, know Greg is Doc at our schools. He comes to our schools. But LeeAnn, let's talk a little bit about your single playing journey. Let's just talk about that a little bit. Now, LeeAnn is obviously, she's an accomplished player. She's an accomplished player in college, or actually even way before college, and an accomplished player after college. But before we get into the single playing, why don't you give the guys and gals at home a little bit about your accomplishments? I mean, you could go on for days, I know, but a little bit, just if I said right now your history in golf, or when you were elected into the Hall of Fame, what is your quick history of golf for the people at home?
Well, I've won 5 state amateurs in Oklahoma, stroke play and match play. I won the North and South Amateur, which is at Pinehurst, North Carolina in '85. Runner-up in the Trans, played in 10 US AMs, represented the United States in a team thing in Colombia and in Italy. So I played on the mini tour for just a few years, but really amateur golf has been my life. Amateur
golf. I mean, you're one of the Bobby Jones of the guys. Yeah, I mean, it really is true. I mean, LeeAnn plays a lot of amateur events, enjoys golf a lot of amateur events. And the last couple of years, honestly, how this kind of worked out was, I mean, obviously LeeAnn's a very accomplished golfer, but I started working with her husband with single playing. I mean, and this was quite a few years back. I mean, in fact, it's probably been, 10 years. I mean, it's been quite a bit. I've been working with Greg. And LeeAnn kind of watched us in the shadows. Now, LeeAnn's always been a really good golfer. And then one day she came up to me, didn't you? And you started talking, saying, I think I do a lot of this anyway. I remember talking about this because I think I've got a lot of this in my swing anyway. And I've known LeeAnn since I was a junior. I mean, we actually grew up at the same course together. And I knew she did. But I wasn't going to push it on her. I wasn't going to come in and say, hey, LeeAnn, you need to do this. But she came to me and she goes, let me get one of those alignment ball position trainers, because kind of how this started, didn't it?
Right.
And let me go try to use that. And I explained it to her, the ABT, and I said, explain it to her, and she took it away and she went and tried it. And then she came back to me and she said, okay, help me a little bit, and I want to start talking about the swing. Am I right?
Correct.
Kind of talk to them at home, kind of how this went.
Well, I feel like I have been single playing pretty much on and off since the 90s, honestly. Just different things happen. And then my husband started taking from Tim, and we're great friends with the Graves. And I said, I just want to see what I need to do it a little bit more like you do it. I did that for maybe 6 months, and then I came back and said, okay, let's try a few more. What else do I need to do to be more true single playing, And I love the alignment. I fell in love with the alignment trainer immediately.
Right.
I've used it every day.
Talk to him why, because you're a very accomplished player, we've had I would say right now between us two, we probably had 1,000 different training aids. I mean, there's not much out there we haven't tried. Is that true?
Exactly.
I mean, we've tried it all. I mean, as much golf as we've played, as much as you've played, as accomplished as you are. Talk why you love the training, the ABT. Why?
Well, there are obviously two kinds of people in the world: detailed and not detailed. I'm a not detailed person. So for someone that's not detailed, it's hard to do the same thing over and over and over. And so as soon as I got the training aid, alignment aid, I knew exactly where my left foot was supposed to go, my right foot was supposed to go, and where the ball was supposed to go. So I have used this seriously for probably 3 years every time I go to the driving range.
It's actually kind of addictive now, isn't it?
I've left it on the driving range a few times, but yes, I try to remember to bring it home with me.
In fact, this morning when we came out, it was kind of funny. I didn't bring an ABT out here with me. She goes, I go in my bag, and she pulled it out. She pulled it out. She goes, I go nowhere without it.
Exactly.
And here's the other thing. When you go and warm up for the USGA event, or you're going for the qualifier during the event, you'll have that out, won't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's like a crutch. It's like the comfort zone for us. I mean, It really is. It makes us feel comfortable.
If you know that your ball position is in the correct place, and your setup is good, your chance to hit a good shot is high, very high.
Absolutely, and that's a really big deal here. Now, so before we get into a little bit about your recent history, let's talk a little bit about your golf swing itself. Tell me, and I know we've done a lot of work together, but tell me some of the things that stick out in your head, the changes we've made in the swing. And I know a lot of this, you guys at home, I think these are just tweaks in the swing, but for an accomplished player like LeeAnn, it's big changes, am I right? I mean, when you make small changes to really good players, they seem like big changes, okay? But let's talk a little bit about what you work on, what you've been working on, what you continually work on, in your single plane swing. We call it the single plane journey, but even myself, Todd, even guys that have been doing this for 20, 25 years, we're always tweaking, changing, upgrading, whatever you want to call the swing. Am I right?
Exactly.
So let's talk to them a little bit at home about what you've done and what you continue to work on, even this morning, what we were doing, okay? So go ahead.
Well, as I say, I always thought my hands were high, and then I realized they needed to be higher, and that's something I'm always working on, because it's easy to kind of fall back into more comfortable or something else. But that, and then I think the biggest thing for me was turning my right hip.
Right.
Because I was like, oh my goodness, there's no way you turn your hip that much. There's no way I can do it, and there's no way the ball will go straight.
So let's talk about that for a second, because LeeAnn's played golf. When did you start playing golf?
I was 11.
11 years old when you started playing golf, okay? We won't talk about our age now, but obviously we're playing in senior events right now. Okay, so we've been playing golf a long time. We obviously, as you get older, hip movement obviously decreases. We know that. When we've talked about this in detail with the hip flexors and so on, and actually LeeAnn's husband Greg is a doctor, so he'll even give you more. He'll give you big time depth of this, won't he? So okay.
Absolutely.
But when I go to LeeAnn and we're working on lessons, one of the common things we talk about, other than getting the hands up and a little bit of that position, is hip movement. And it's very common. And LeeAnn, honestly, you'll see this, and she'll hit a few more balls here. She's got what you guys at home, I think, is pretty good hip movement, but we're continually working that, aren't we? And talk to them a little bit about at home when you're not getting the right hip movement, or when it's not adequate or not good, what happens? Kind of tell them what happens.
Well, and I want to say too, when you get under pressure, then it doesn't want to turn near as much. You have to mentally say, okay, turn your hip. You want to turn your hip, keep turning your hip. Because when you don't, then actually my club head goes outside. I hit him left. If I don't turn my hip and I hit a shot to the left, as soon as I hit left, I go, I probably didn't turn my, because my shoulders took over.
So basically what happens is, and we know this, when the hip and shoulders move properly, when you make impact, the hips are open at impact, the shoulders are square, okay? And there's a separation there after the transition. What LeeAnn is saying is when she goes back and doesn't move her hips properly, as she makes impact, now her shoulders are too open. Her hips will move. I mean, she's never going to not move her hips, but if she's not moving them enough, now her shoulders open, she's going to pull the ball. And honestly, and then if you're not thinking hips, and she knows her tendency, she'll actually start blocking it because she starts holding on a little bit. So it's most of it's a pull, or at times it can be a block, and that's the trap she falls into. It's interesting. It's nice to be able to work with a player or players that know their tendencies, because the issue when you deal with them is when they're out there playing and the issues are going on, like even under pressure, she knows what's going on. Am I right?
Exactly.
So she's going to hit a couple here, and she's going to set up here. She's going to hit a few, and if we have to tweak anything, we will. But actually what I want her to do is she's hitting these, and most time we don't do this, is I want her to kind of talk. She's mic'd up on this. I kind of want her to talk at what she's thinking when she gets over this shot, and what this is what LeeAnn works on. I mean, and you want to talk about that, LeeAnn? So
sure.
We're over it right now. So if she's out here practicing right now for the event coming up in a couple of weeks, this is what she'd be thinking of this. Go ahead, LeeAnn.
So I know that my feet are in the correct position, and then I try to get my setup good and make sure. For me right now, I'm always trying to keep my left arm high and my right arm low so I can see that. And from here.
So explain that one more time here. I love that, and I don't want to interrupt you on this, but so right now you're looking for your left arm above your right, and that's one of your keys to see that.
Right.
That will guarantee that your shoulders are set up very well. Okay.
Correct.
So you actually look at that, don't you?
I do.
Okay.
And a lot of times when I practice, I have a water bottle back here because I also know that I want that club to go more in, and for me that's a lot harder to do.
So you'll do the 5 foot back, 1 foot in.
I usually always have a water bottle
and
right there.
she'll set a water bottle here so she can actually look at that and press and over that.
So when I'm standing right here, I look at the target, and when I come out, all I'm really thinking about is just tempo and timing, but just really just turning my hip as I go back, and then I actually do think turn, bump, slide, honestly,
okay.
even when I'm playing, thinking when I'm hitting the shot. So as I get up over it and I come back, I'm thinking turn, bump, slide.
Right.
Obviously, I can't talk and hit at the same time.
That was actually pretty good. I think a lot of the guys and gals at home, I think that's pretty good. So good there. Okay.
So that would be and that's, to me, that's a lot of just tempo and timing. Once I get my setup good, because when I'm set up right here and I know I'm set up good, I know I can just go.
Now you mentioned a second ago, you talked about your hands.
Yes.
And about how high the hands and how low the hands are. Talk about that here for a second, because kind of talk about your tendency and what you do and what you want to do.
Well, I've always been a little higher than most, and I go crazy when people get down here. But when I get tired, or when I maybe later in the round, I can feel that from here I kind of let them just drop just to here. So I just have to just kind of think that straight line to my left shoulder, and like I said, if my right arm is lower than my left, I'm good. So once I get here, then I'm thinking tempo and timing.
Right. Very nice. So now, when you said, because that was kind of interesting, because you started watching when I was working with Greg, you started watching what I was doing with him, because I mean his hands were actually quite a bit lower when he first started. We lifted him up. We got him a little bit wider at setup. We got him a little further from the ball, obviously. And that's what really started ringing bells with you, because when you saw me do that with him, you kept saying to yourself, I already do that. I already do that. I already do that.
Further from the ball, we forgot about that. That was a little interesting journey, and that's still something I always have to work on. I'll call Tim and say, oh, I'm doing this, and he'll say, get further from the ball.
Right. And because if you think about it right now, if you're too close to the ball, if you lift your hands, you're too close to the ball, what are you going to do to make impact? You've got to lift to make impact. And this is what we'll see. So there's times when LeeAnn will sit there and say she feels like she's lifting, she's coming out of the shot. That's me trying to get away from the golf ball. And honestly, you've never had a big problem with being too far from the ball with the driver in the fairway woods. It's more the irons. Am I right?
Correct.
Because I remember she stood out very well with the driver in the fairway woods. I mean, in her longer clubs, she got good distance. It was those shorter clubs, and when you drop the hands, you get a little bit close. But we're not talking about 6 or 7 inches too close. We're talking 1 or 2.
Yeah.
So it's not this dramatic deal. Am I right?
Correct.
So, okay. So now, you know, I'm gonna have her hit a couple more here in a second, but I'm gonna talk to you for a second here about another thing. And I'm sure the guys at home are really interested in this, because I preach and teach about this a lot, but you've got a tournament here. It's a couple weeks? Okay.
10 days.
Yeah, 10, okay. Tell me what you're doing right now, so for the couple weeks leading up to that tournament, okay? So, because they'll be interested at home to see, because this is, for amateurs, this is a major. I mean, this is considered a major for amateurs, okay? What are you doing for these 2 weeks? Now, LeeAnn's a mom. In fact, she's got a daughter that's starting college here.
Tomorrow. I take her tomorrow. Yeah. Take her Saturday. I've got 2 days for my daughter going to college.
Yeah, so she's got, I don't want to get her crying here. In fact, Greg and I play golf once a week, and he canceled his golf with this week. I don't know if you know this or not, because he's moving his daughter into college. I said, good, that's an okay excuse.
Exactly.
Her daughter's a sweetheart, so we love Gracie. But tell, for these 2 weeks, okay, or for leading up to the event, tell them at home what you've done or what you're doing to prepare for it.
Well, after going to Iowa, I knew there was going to be a lot of wedges, and I love to practice wedges, and I think practicing wedges helps your long game. So I've tried to hit 30 to 110 yard shots every other day or every day, you know, maybe just 5 or 10 at each spot, and work on my short game. Working a lot on putting.
Well, before we go into putting real quick, about the wedges, because we talked about that this morning. Describe, I mean, I want a little bit of depth here. Describe what you mean by hitting wedges, because she's not going to the range in wedges, are you?
I don't go to the range.
Tell them what you do, because this is really cool.
I have this place that I go, it's my old high school, and there's a track, and on the south side of the track there's a hill, and there's 115 or 20 yards, and I just put balls, I just do 30, 40, 50, and I use my rangefinder and have a target. I can see where the ball's landing on the hill, and I can see if it's landing, and I have a little concrete wall that's like a bunker in front of it. So if it hits the concrete wall, I know I'm in the bunker. But you know, where it's landing, right, left, or the right distance. And I'm really concentrating on distance, because the golf course is in Iowa you don't want to be past the pin.
Right.
So I'm really working on distance.
So you got your shag bag.
Got my shag bag.
You're going out in a field, or just it's a little football field, a little area. You're hitting balls, and you're basically wedge charting yourself and working very hard on your wedges.
I am.
Now, now, do you normally do this, or are you putting extra time into it right now?
I normally do it, but I'm putting a lot more extra time into it.
Because you know this is going to be a wedge-heavy course for you.
It
okay?
is.
So that's wedges. Now you're about to get in putting.
Well, I was going to say, then I spent a lot of time putting and trying to find breaking putts. I practice a lot of straight putts normally, just because I think all putts are straight, even if they break. But this golf is this course is so insane, is the word I'm going to use. It has such big breaks. It's a Donald Ross, okay? So it has a lot of big breaks. I've been practicing a lot of big breaks, because that's not my norm either. So letting it go up and die down to the hole, and you know, that's been an interesting thing. And just really working on pitching and bunker play, a lot of just around the greens, because Donald Ross, those greens are, you know, push-up greens. And
it's actually been very interesting, because LeeAnn, right when she got back and she qualified, and it was literally within a day, she called me up and she goes, I've got to find greens around our house that are fast, that have a lot of slope. And she called me up and she says, where can I go? And we've got probably a dozen courses around here that we have access to that I can get her on. And we've been very hard time finding it, haven't we? And the
Oklahoma.
It's because, well, it's really kind of everywhere right now, because it's 100 degrees out and they can't cut the greens that tight and that small. Now we have slope greens. The problem is you can't get them run that fast, or they'll die here. So we've been working. I'm almost telling her to start putting in her garage floor. I mean, it'd probably be closer, wouldn't it? I mean, it's going to be.
But I've been practicing just like putting, like putting a tee and putting above the tee and making sure it's dying down, because that's the kind of course I'm going to be playing. And so that's what I need to do.
So we've actually played a couple times since, and we've really been thinking about that, trying to find. In fact, she's out here this morning at our course at Rose Creek and found some slope putts she's working on. I mean, anyway, so you've been working on putting. Now, question for you on this. You have a good full swing, obviously. You got a good long game. It's always tweaking, always working on it. Tell them right now the percentage of time. So this has been a couple weeks leading up to the event, and actually still have another 10 days. Kind of break down the percentage. What percentage of your time is spent on the short game right now versus the long game on working on it? What do you think?
So 80-20, 75-25.
So 80 short game, 20 long game? So yeah. Now will you play as we get closer to the event? Will you go out and start playing?
Well, and I have been playing like 9 holes at night, or when it's not 110. But I'm also playing at courses that are more like this golf course, is hilly golf courses we can find in Oklahoma, because the golf course I usually play is a lot flatter. So as I get closer, I really haven't been hitting that many balls. I'm just trying to play.
So basically what it comes down to, you guys know it preaches, and this isn't me teaching her this is just good players' reaction to what they need to do. What she'll do, and you're seeing this, is she's starting to really hammer on the short game, and she's even getting more focused now in the fact that she's trying to simulate what she's going to get up there. That's number one, because she knows what she's about to play. Number two is, as we start getting closer to the event, she's going to start getting that playing mode, aren't you? I mean, whether even it's 9 holes, even if it's 3 or 4 or 5 holes, but she's going to get in that playing mode, because the worst thing she can do right now is be out here tweaking, changing, making these huge adjustments in the golf swing, and say, okay, I'm going to go play. You're not going to be comfortable out there. You can always tweak small, and she knows her tendencies, but she's going to be really focused on playing, and trying to simulate what she's doing up there. Am I right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's the big thing. All right, so I'm going to hit a couple more here, and then I'm going to talk to her about one more thing here. So I'm going to hit a couple more, and again, as she's doing this, remember what she's working on, and again, we're tweaking a lot, is her tendency is her hands tend to fall down just a little bit. I mean, which is interesting, because when she says hands down, she'll go here. Okay, she's not talking conventional, she's going here. So it's right here. Again, she's looking for the lead above the trail when she sets up. Now, she wants to get her hips moved. What I like to see is I like to see that foot down at impact. Now it's going to come up after impact, we know that. But if you look here, you'll watch this heel and this foot, it'll be down at impact. Now it'll be slightly turned in. I mean, LeeAnn actually turns the foot in slightly when she makes impact, but then she'll come up out of it. So it doesn't stay down through impact, but right. LeeAnn, I mean, it's going to come up out of it. But right now, she's working on moving the hips, basically staying square through impact, and then getting that lead above the trail at setup and hitting it pretty well from there. Yeah. Now, I know it's hard for them to see that on camera, but LeeAnn, describe that shot for them.
It started out pretty straight, went straight, maybe died just a hair to the left.
It's kind of interesting. LeeAnn hits pretty much a dead straight ball with a small draw on the end. She'll tell you it's dead straight. We always have this argument. I'll tell you it's got a little tail, am I right?
Yeah.
So, but that's good. That's where she gets her distance. You know, talk about, last thing on the swing itself, and then I want to talk about what you do with us. Talk about the driving distance, the iron distance, since you've really kind of, we say converted to single plane, but like we say, you've done this most of your life. We've made the tweaks. Talk about the distance issues and so on. I mean, when you go out and play with other players at, you know, your caliber, your age, you know, when you're going to play in this, describe your distance compared to them. What do you think?
I'm above average, and I'm not necessarily the longest, for sure. There's some ladies that can really move it out there. That's my winter project. But, you know, I probably hit my drive anywhere from 225 to 250. I mean, that's a big variance, but anywhere in there, and that's pretty good for senior golfers.
No, that's fantastic. In fact, I have a lot of guys at home that would love to hit 225 to 250 every time. Now, you just mentioned something here, so I'm going to walk in that line because you started doing this last winter. You said your winter project, you know, to get distance. What do you do in the winter to get distance? What do we work on?
Well, we work on flexibility, and I'm going to do a lot of strength training this year because I'm kind of gotten weak.
Yeah, and then and she actually uses our hand speed trainers, don't you?
I do. Hand speed trainers, and I usually hurt myself, so start out slow.
Yeah.
Because Tim goes, just do a few, and I was like, I did like 40. That's too many. You don't have to do 40 the first day.
See, like anyone else, just like you all at home, I tell you to start slow and work up, and she goes crazy with it, and she calls you up and kind of hurts herself a little, and we got to back up and do it again. All right.
But I'm going to be consistent with it this winter on the hand speed trainer because I really do think that it has helped me.
Well, I know you and Greg, and I got a lot of guys at home that do this. You actually, one of the hand speed trainers, need to work out. When you go work out, it's a great thing because you're always working those shoulders, those arms, and so on. And yeah, it's a big deal. All right. Now for a few seconds, I want to talk a little bit. Now, LeeAnn, she's an amateur, and we make sure she keeps her amateur status. We do, and she will actually volunteer and come up with help with golf schools, won't you? And you've done that with us for a few times, and you actually came out to Phoenix with us and did a golf school with us, right?
Yeah, I was visiting my cousin. You happened to be at the golf school.
Yeah, I happened to be there. And I drug her in.
Greg went the whole time.
Yeah.
I came for a few days.
Well, we had 4 ladies at the school, am I right? And they absolutely loved LeeAnn being there. We're actually going to get her out for a few more schools. Talk about that experience for them with a little bit about teaching with us, and do you enjoy it? Do you not?
Oh, it was fun. It was fun. You know, it happened to be Phoenix. I mean, you know, Phoenix in November, how can you not love that? And the grass was perfect, and I was in a good frame. I guess I was hitting pretty well. And it was fun because they were amazed, and I was just like, well, it's just golf. We can all do that. So then I just try to encourage them and help them get set up better and, you know, do the same things. And it's nice to be able to work with a woman and to talk to another lady who's trying to do the same thing.
Absolutely.
Because I'm not a pro. I have tons of other things I do, but so that's why I tell them, you have to do the little basic things, the trainer, put the water bottle, you know, just the things that are going to help you remember what to do.
Well, it was very interesting because 2 things that we really noticed in the school. Number one, I think we had 15, 16 students there, and 4 were ladies. And LeeAnn came in, and the 4 ladies, we obviously put the 4 ladies with LeeAnn, and we couldn't keep them away from it. Every time LeeAnn would go somewhere, they kind of it was like little ducklings with the mama duck walking. It really was, because we had Dale, our videographer, out there, and every time he'd go to shoot pictures, the ladies were with LeeAnn, and we had LeeAnn do a little demo for them and stuff, and they were just amazed. I mean, I'm still getting emails from her to this day. What's she doing? Where's she at? What's going on with her? But the thing that was really interesting about that was, it was interesting watching, you know, I hit balls from, Todd hits balls from, Chandler hits balls from, and LeeAnn hits balls from. I mean, it's all the same model. It's interesting. It's all the same thing. And you're looking at the same path, the same plane, the same thing, whether ladies or whether guys do it, and the way it comes off the face. And I remember the ladies saying they really appreciated you being out there. They loved that. And we had a lot of fun doing that.
We did. We had a good time.
And you're going to do it again with us, right?
I think so.
Yeah. We're planning on having her out there. We're planning her. She's busy. We're planning if you keep qualifying for these events. So, anyway, but again, you know, I wanted LeeAnn to come out here this morning. I'll have her hit a couple more here in a second just to get a little more video of this. But we want to, you know, tell her good luck. I mean, you know, she's representing single plane. I don't want to put too much pressure on her, but single plane is, she's done this a lot. She knows what's going on here, and she'll do very well up there.
Yeah, usually, you know this too, Tim. You go play golf tournament, you're just trying to do the best you can do.
Right.
And if you do your best, everything seems to work out, you know, to make the cut and then play match play. Match play is a whole different deal. But, you know, I just try to go have a good time. And like I said, every shot, take one shot at a time and do my best. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. And the one thing that LeeAnn really understands about this, and I preach this and teach this and actually live this, is that when you're in match play, which she will qualify and get into match play, is the fact that it really comes down to your short game. I mean, it's interesting. We were talking today on the golf course, and you know, LeeAnn was talking about a couple of the holes out there that are really difficult holes and usually I said, let them make the mistakes.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because people, and there'll be a lot of great players in this field. I mean, a lot of players that are very accomplished also, but the players that win match play are the ones that make the least amount of mistakes. Very seldom do you watch people go on match play and shoot 0 and win.
Right.
They go out there and limit the mistakes. They get up and down. I mean, they're the ones that have the 60, 70, 80, 90% up and down. They limit that. They may not even hit it great, but they win because they don't make the mistakes. And that's what we talked about, and she knows that. I mean, LeeAnn, she lives that. But she's gonna, I'm never a couple more, just get some more film of this. And LeeAnn, I appreciate you coming out here this morning.
I mean,
you want to hit a driver? Sure.
Yeah,
want to hit a driver? Absolutely.
I'll take that one.
There you go.
And all I did was turn better.
That was, yeah.
I felt like I turned better. Maybe kept my foot on the ground just a half a second longer.
Now you're getting warmed up.
2 in a row.
Yep. Very nice. So, you like the Epic Flash?
Love it. Favorite driver in a long time.
It's pretty good, doesn't it?
It does.
Well, again, I want to thank LeeAnn for coming out this morning. Appreciate your time, LeeAnn, and good luck up. And again, I know you'll qualify for a lot more, but good luck, play good up there, and we'll be rooting you on.
Okay, thanks so much.